In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve 12 equations for our Chapter 2 extra review packet. Now in this equation, you have letters on both sides and numbers on both sides. And so what you want to do is move all your letters to one side of the equal sign and the numbers to the opposite side. So I'm going to start by moving my x's all to the left side of my equal sign. So I'm going to have negative 7 plus 5, which would be negative 2x. And the rest of my equation I'm going to leave the same here. Now, if my x's are on the left side, that means my numbers have to go to the right side. So I'm going to add 6. Now, negative 6 plus 6 is 0. Now, negative 2 times a number, x, is going to equal 0. Well, what does that number have to be if it equals 0? Well, negative 2 times 0 is 0. So our variable had to be the number 0 so that when you multiply those together, you get 0. So x equals 0 is our solution here. Now for number 10, what I'm going to start with is distributing our 3 to our x and our minus 2. Okay, now what I'm going to do is similar to what I started with over here is move my letters to one side. I'm going to pick my letters to go to the left. So I'm going to subtract my 3x. Now I notice that something happens here. If I move my x's over to this side, they actually cancel out and I have no x's left over. There are no x's. Well, if there's no x's, I don't need to write 0x because there are none of them. So I'm left with this number that negative 6 is equal to negative 17. What happens here when your letters cancel out and the numbers do not match, that means you have what's called no solution. And so even if you were to move your numbers over, there's nothing that you could have plugged in for your x to make those match up to be the same. So no solution here for number 10. For 11, since I only have an x on the right side, I'm going to move my numbers away from that x. So I'm going to subtract 15 to the other side. So I'm going to take 49 and subtract 15, and I get 34 is equal to negative x. Well, when you solve, you don't want a negative, you want a positive. So think of this as 34 is equal to negative 1 times x. So divide both sides by negative 1, and you'll have negative 34 is equal to your x. Now, it doesn't matter how you write it, on the left or right, but if you want to write it x equals, go ahead. Now, for number 12, when you have a fraction equal to a fraction, what you need to do is cross multiply. So you're going to multiply your diagonals together. So 5 times 3x, and set that equal to the other diagonal, 8 times 2x minus 9. So here you're going to get 15x will equal 16x minus 72. So now if I have letters on both sides, the goal is to get the letters together and away from your number terms because you want your letters equal to your numbers. So I'm going to subtract 16x so that my number term will be by itself on this right side of the equal sign, and then my letters will be alone on the left side. So I have negative x because 15 minus 16 is negative 1. That's going to equal negative 72. Now again, kind of like what I did up here, this means negative 1 times x is equal to negative 72. So we're going to divide by negative 1 on both sides of the equal sign. Negative divided by negative means this is going to become positive 72. Or you could just kind of think like flip your signs. So if you need a positive x, this side needs to also be flipped as well. Okay, now for number 13, I'm going to undo divide by negative 5 by multiplying both sides by negative 5. So that will cancel out my fraction. So I'll have 3x plus 1 will equal negative 55 when I multiply my 5 to the other side. Okay, now get your x alone. I'm going to subtract 1 to have my x's be alone. So that's going to be negative 56. And now I'm going to divide by 3. And it looks like we get a fraction here, so I'm going to actually leave it negative 56 over 3. You could write it as the decimal, negative 18.6 repeating. Just ask your teacher what format they want you to leave it in. Okay, now for 14, I'm going to start by distributing the negative sign to everything in this set of parentheses. So your x is going to be opposite sign, your -4 is going to be opposite sign. So this is going to read now 7 minus x plus 4 will equal -3x minus 3. Now on the left side, on this side of the equal sign, I have multiple numbered terms. I'm going to combine them together. So 7 plus 4, if I combine those, would be 11 minus x. And that will still equal -3x minus 3. Now with letters on both sides and numbers on both sides, pick one side for your letters to go and the opposite side for your numbers to go. So I'm actually going to start by adding 3x to the left side. So I'm going to have 11 plus 2x now will equal -3. And I'm going to subtract 11 so that my x's are by themselves. So 2x will equal now -14. And now if I divide by 2, my coefficient, I'll have -7 for my answer. Okay, 3 more for this page. Now for number 15, I'm going to start by distributing my -2 to all the terms inside the parentheses here. So we have -26 will equal -6x and then plus 22. So notice I have x terms, only one x term on the right side. So I'm going to move my numbers away from the letters. So my letters are now alone on the right side. -26 minus 22 is going to get you -48. And now I can divide by my coefficient of -6. So divide by -6, and I get a +8. You could write it x equals 8. You could write 8 equals x. Those are the same answer. Okay, now fraction equal to a fraction, very much like what we did over here. We're going to multiply our diagonals together. This is called cross multiply. And you need to distribute your 4 here to both the x and the 7, kind of like what we did over here with our 8. The 8 needed to get multiplied by 2x minus 9, so you want to make sure you distribute so that your number gets multiplied by every term in the top. So it's going to look like this: 4 times an x plus 7, and that will equal the opposite diagonal, which will be 6 times an x minus 2. So you want your 4 to get multiplied by the x and the 7. You want your 6 to get multiplied by the x and minus 2. So this is going to be 4x plus 28 when you distribute your 4. And on the right side, when we distribute our 6, you'll have 6x minus 12. Now pick a side for the letters to go. Pick the opposite side of the equal sign for your numbers to go. So I'm going to subtract 4x. So I'm just moving my x's to the right side. Now if my x's are on the right side, that means I need to move my numbers to the opposite side, which is the left side. So 28 plus 12 will give me 40, and that will equal 2x. So 40 is equal to 2 times what number? That's going to give you 20 when you divide by 2. Okay, last one for the page here. I'm going to show you how to type this out on your calculator. The 3/4, you're going to hit your 3 button, and then this ABC, which is your fraction button. So that's 3 fraction 4. Now I'm going to multiply, so I'm going to hit my multiply key and times 12. That's going to get you 9x for the first term. Okay, now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to multiply by -32, and I'm going to get -24 for that second term. Okay, now we're going to distribute on the other side. I don't need my calculator for this, though, so I'm just going to multiply with my head. 3 times 2 is 6 for the x term, and 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, now letters and numbers on both sides. Move your letters to one side and the numbers to the opposite side of the equal sign. I'm going to start by moving 6x. So pick any one of those 4 terms and move them. You'll be on your way. It doesn't matter which one you move as long as letters go on one side and numbers go on the opposite side of the equal sign. Okay, so 9 minus 6 is going to give us 3x. Minus 24, that's supposed to equal 15. Now if my letters are on the left side, I need to move my numbers away from my letter. So I'm going to move the 24 over to the right side. So now I have 3x will equal 39. And if I divide both sides by 3, which is my coefficient, I'll have 13 for my solution. X equals 13. Okay, stay tuned for the next video that's going to go through the next page of the review packet.